Dieter Bohlen pushed through the heavy glass doors of Deutsche Bank Hamburg at exactly 9:02 a.m., March 1985. The lobby was quiet, professional, the kind of place where serious money changed hands. He had an appointment at 9:15. His accountant had arranged it. The first major royalty payment from You're My Heart, You're My Soul had arrived, platinum sales across Europe. The check was significant, life-changing significant. Dieter was early. Preferred it that way, gave him time to prepare. To control the situation, he walked toward the waiting area and stopped. Thomas Anders was sitting in one of the leather chairs, looking at a magazine, also waiting. For a moment neither moved, then their eyes met. The recognition was instant, mutual, followed immediately by something else. Not quite hostility, not quite. Embarrassment, something between. Thomas, Dieter said. Professional, neutral. Dieter, Thomas replied. Same tone, they hadn't planned this, hadn't coordinated. But of course they'd both be here. Same royalty payment, same bank, probably similar appointment times. The logic was obvious in retrospect, but neither had thought to check, or maybe they had and chose not to mention it. Either way, here they were, partners in the most successful German pop act in years. In the same bank lobby, about to receive the biggest paychecks of their lives, and barely speaking to each other. To understand how this moment happened, you need to understand where Dieter and Thomas were in March 1985. Modern talking had exploded. You're My Heart, You're My Soul had topped charts across Europe, sold over 1 million copies, made them household names, given them everything they'd worked for, success, fame, recognition, money, but the partnership was already fracturing. The problems that would eventually destroy modern talking in 1987 were already present. The arguments over credit, the resentment about control, the incompatible egos, the inability to share success. They still worked together, still performed together, still presented a united front publicly. But privately they avoided each other, separate interviews, separate social circles, minimal contact outside of professional obligations. So finding themselves in the same bank lobby waiting for the same type of appointment was awkward. Neither wanted to be there with the other, but neither could leave without looking petty. Dieter sat down, 3 chairs away from Thomas, far enough. Signal distance, close enough to not look ridiculous. Thomas went back to his magazine. Dieter pulled out some papers, both pretending the other wasn't there. The silence was heavy, uncomfortable, the kind of silence that draws attention. A bank employee walked past, glanced at them, did a double take, whispered something to a colleague. They both looked, modern talking, here, together but clearly not together. The body language was unmistakable. Dieter checked his watch. 9:08, 7 minutes until his appointment. He wondered if Thomas's appointment was at the same time, or maybe earlier, or later. He didn't ask. Thomas turned a page in his magazine. Hadn't actually read a word, just needed something to do with his hands, something to look at that wasn't Dieter. This was supposed to be a good day. A celebration, the first major financial reward for months of work, for years of struggling before modern talking, for every small venue and rejected demo and closed door. This check represented validation, proof that the struggle had been worth it. But sitting here 3 chairs away from his partner, unable to even make small talk, Dieter felt the victory hollow out. Success meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. Thomas was thinking the same thing, different words. Same sentiment, he'd imagined this moment, getting the call from his accountant. The royalty payment is here, it's substantial. He'd imagined celebrating, calling friends, taking his girlfriend to dinner, buying something expensive just because he could. He hadn't imagined sitting in a bank lobby, silently hostile toward the one person who'd been equally responsible for earning this money. It felt wrong, petty, sad. A bank manager appeared, professional smile. Mr. Bohlen, we're ready for you. Dieter stood, gathered his papers, walked toward the offices, didn't look at Thomas. Thomas watched him go, felt relief, and something else, something that might have been regret. He had 7 minutes alone, 7 minutes to sit with the strangeness of this situation, partners who couldn't partner, collaborators who couldn't collaborate, 2 people who'd created something together but couldn't be in the same room without tension. The bank lobby was quiet again, just Thomas, a few other customers, the soft sound of transaction happening behind closed doors. He thought about leaving, coming back later, avoiding the whole situation, but that was cowardly, and the appointment was scheduled. The money was waiting. He'd stay. At 9:15 another bank manager appeared. Mr. Anders. Thomas stood, followed her to a different office, different manager, same transaction. The office was small, professional, wood paneling, certificates on the wall. The manager was efficient, friendly. "Congratulations on your success," she said. "We've had several clients mention your music. Very impressive." "Thank you," Thomas said. She laid out paperwork, explained the deposit, the amount, the tax withholding, the final number that would appear in his account. Thomas looked at it, the largest amount he'd ever seen with his name attached. 6 figures, substantial, life-changing. "This is your first major royalty payment?" the manager asked. "Yes." "You must be very pleased." "Yes," Thomas said again, but his voice was flat. The manager noticed, didn't comment. In another office, Dieter was having the same conversation. Different manager, same paperwork, same numbers. His manager was also congratulatory, also friendly. "This is just the beginning," the man said. "With success like this, these payments will keep coming." Dieter nodded, signed papers. Ask practical questions about tax implications and investment options. All the right questions, all the professional responses, but inside he felt nothing. The number on the page was impressive, should have been thrilling, should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like a transaction. Numbers moving from one account to another, proof of commercial success, but not joy, not satisfaction, just confirmation that the work had monetary value. The manager finished the paperwork. "Congratulations again. Is there anything else we can help you with today?" "No, thank you." Dieter gathered his copies, stood, shook hands, walked out. Thomas finished his appointment 2 minutes later. Different office, same outcome, papers signed, money transferred, polite congratulations received. He walked out of the office, back toward the lobby. Dieter was standing near the exit. Waiting, not for Thomas, just standing there, looking at his phone, looking like he was waiting for something. Thomas walked past, almost made it to the door. Then Dieter spoke. "Congratulations." The word hung in the air, formal, distant, but genuine in its own way. Thomas stopped, turned. "You too." They looked at each other, two young men who just received the biggest paychecks of their lives. Should have been celebrating together, should have been excited, planning how to spend it, laughing about how far they'd come. Instead, they stood in a bank lobby, awkward, distant, unable to bridge the gap between them. "I didn't know you'd be here," Dieter said. "Same," Thomas replied. "Makes sense though, same payment, same bank." "Yeah." Silence, the kind that used to be comfortable. That used to be filled with creative conversation or planning or jokes. Now it was just empty. "Well," Dieter said, "good luck with everything." "You too." Dieter walked out. Thomas waited 30 seconds, then followed. The parking lot was cold, March in Hamburg, gray sky. Both men walked to their cars, parked indifferent. Rose. Dieter got in his Mercedes, started the engine, sat there. Thomas got in his BMW, did the same, both sitting in their expensive cars, fresh from receiving their biggest paychecks. Both alone. Dieter pulled out his phone, almost called someone, put it down. Who would he call? His parents. "I just got a huge royalty check." They'd be proud, but would they understand? Would they get what this moment meant? His friends. Most of them weren't in the music industry, wouldn't fully comprehend the significance. His girlfriend, maybe, but even that felt hollow. Because the one person who would truly understand what this check represented, what it meant to go from struggling artist to platinum success, was Thomas. And Thomas was 3 rows over, in a different car, equally alone. Thomas stared at his steering wheel, the paperwork from the bank sitting on the passenger seat, numbers that represented everything he'd worked for, everything he'd sacrificed, the years of vocal training, the small venue performances, the rejection, the doubt, the moments when he'd wondered if he'd made the right choice pursuing music. This check proved he had, proved the struggle had been worth it, proved he'd succeeded. But who was he proving it to? His family. They'd never doubted him. His girlfriend, she'd supported him regardless. The public, they didn't care about his bank account. They cared about the music. The only person he wanted to prove it to, the only person whose recognition would actually mean something, was Dieter. Because Dieter understood the work, understood the craft, understood what it took to create something that millions of people connected with. And Dieter was driving away. Both cars sat in the parking lot for 3 more minutes, neither driver moving, both thinking similar thoughts about success and loneliness, about achievement and emptiness, about getting everything you wanted and discovering it wasn't enough. Finally, Dieter put his car in gear, drove out of the parking lot, turned left toward his apartment. Thomas waited another minute, then did the same, turned right. Different direction, different destination, same hollow feeling. Years later, both men would remember that day, not because of the money, though the money had been significant, but because of what the money represented, the pinnacle of their success together, the moment when everything they'd worked for had materialized into tangible reward, and they'd experienced it separately, unable to share it, unable to celebrate together, unable to acknowledge that the success belonged to both of them equally. Dieter would remember sitting in his apartment that afternoon, check deposited, money in his account, champagne in his fridge, no one to drink it with, no one who would understand what this moment meant. He'd sat on his couch, turned on the TV, watched mindless programming. While his bank account celebrated, he felt nothing. Thomas would remember driving home, stopping at a park, sitting on a bench, watching people walk by. Normal people, with normal jobs, normal problems, normal celebrations. He just received more money in a single payment than most of these people earned in a year, and he felt more alone than he'd ever felt. The check was supposed to be the beginning, the proof that modern talking was real, was successful, was worth all the sacrifice. Instead, it felt like an ending. Proof that success couldn't fix what was broken between them, couldn't bridge the gap, couldn't make them partners in anything but name. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. They'd created music about connection, about love, about togetherness. You're My Heart, You're My Soul was literally about needing another person. And here they were, having succeeded beyond their wildest dreams with that very song, unable to need each other, unable to be in the same room without awkwardness, unable to share the victory they'd created together. A bank employee who'd witnessed both appointments would later tell the story. They were here the same day, same time, obviously together, but acting like strangers. I'd just seen them on TV the week before, performing together, looking like best friends, but in the bank, nothing. They couldn't even make eye contact. That disconnect between the public image and the private reality, between the performance and the truth, that was modern talking in March 1985. Successful, famous, rich, and falling apart, the money kept coming, more royalty checks, more success, more platinum records. But that first big check, that moment in the Deutsche Bank lobby, that stayed with both of them, not as a celebration, as a warning. That success without connection is hollow. That achievement without someone to share it with feels empty. That you can have everything you ever wanted and still feel like you have nothing. Dieter would eventually learn to celebrate alone, to find satisfaction in the work itself, in the craft, in the numbers and the success and the validation from the industry. He'd learned to not need Thomas's recognition, to not need partnership to feel successful, but he'd never forget that first check, that first moment of realization that succeeding alone wasn't the same as succeeding together. Thomas would learn the same lesson, different path, same conclusion. He'd find his own validation, his own reasons to celebrate, his own sense of worth independent of Dieter's recognition. But the memory of that bank lobby, of driving away separately, of being alone with the biggest victory of his life, that memory would always carry a tinge of sadness, a reminder of what could have been. When the 1998 reunion happened, when Dieter called Thomas after 11 years, when they decided to try again, one of the first things they talked about was money, not because they needed it, both had done fine independently, but because they both remembered March 1985, remembered the bank, remembered the separate appointments, remembered how empty success felt without partnership. We should have celebrated together that day, Dieter said during one of their reunion planning meetings. Thomas knew immediately which day he meant. Yeah, we should have. This time we do it differently, equal split, joint accounts, transparent, together, agreed. It was a small thing, a practical business decision, but it carried weight, acknowledgement that money alone hadn't been the point, partnership had been, and they'd lost that somewhere between the success and the ego, between the achievement and the credit. The first royalty check from the reunion, when it came, they had the accountant send it to both of them at the same time, opened them on a video call, cheered together, laughed at how much better this felt. How much more meaningful the number was when someone else understood what it represented. Should have done this in 1985, Thomas said. Should have, Dieter agreed, but we were idiots, young idiots, still idiots. They laughed. The kind of laugh that holds regret and recognition and appreciation all at once. The Deutsche Bank Hamburg lobby, March 1985, two young men, their biggest success, their biggest check, their biggest mistake, experiencing it alone. That moment defined something about modern talking's first era, defined why it couldn't last, defined why they broke up 2 years later, not because of the music was good, not because of the success. The success was real, but because they never learned how to be successful together, how to share victory, how to celebrate as partners rather than competitors. The bank teller who processed Thomas's transaction, she remembered them. Years later, saw the reunion announced on TV, told her husband, "I processed their first big royalty payment. They were here the same day, couldn't even look at each other. And now they're back together, good luck to them." Her skepticism was understandable. If you couldn't celebrate together when times were good, how would you survive when times were hard? But the reunion worked for 5 years, until 2003, because both men remembered March 1985, remembered how it felt to succeed alone, remembered how empty victory was. Without someone who understood what it meant, that memory, that bank lobby, that separate celebration of shared success, it became a cautionary tale, a reminder, a lesson learned the hard way. Money doesn't make you happy. Success doesn't fill the void. Victory means nothing if you have no one to share it with. Two men, two checks, two cars driving in opposite directions, same destination, different paths, and the same hollow feeling that no amount of money could fill. That was March 1985. That was Modern Talking's first big payday. That was the beginning of the end, not because they failed, but because they succeeded and couldn't figure out how to do it together.